one of my good friends, or best friend from kindergarten. We actually got in a lot of trouble together. I think because of that, because of me getting in trouble and almost getting sent to juvenile hall, I remember telling my probation officer, saying like, I've found something that interests me, and this is something I'm gonna focus on.
I was the scrawny little kid with probably size 6 feet, right? I wanted to go off the high dive. I wanted to be one of the best basketball players, but I just didn't have the size to do that. And so when I started skating, it gave me a sense of identity. It gave me a sense of self-confidence. It gave me a purpose.
When I was growing up, I was miserable at everything I tried to do. I rode a bike once, tried to do a wheelie, the front wheel fell off, I crashed. Skateboarding, it was the first time I was good at something. I wasn't horrible at it, which meant I was good at it.
You know, I competed in team sports before as a young kid, and I think I was playing for those coaches' dreams. I don't know. I don't think it was about the kids. It was about them reliving their childhood, you know, and I think that kind of just scared me off of team sports. You know, skateboarding I could just do by myself. I didn't have to have somebody to throw the ball with.
Every sect, every faction in school gave me grief, you know? It doesn't matter, like, the cool kids, the stoners, you know, the jocks. Fuck it, it was like, fuck you, man. It was the only thing I could find sanctuary in, you know, a sense of peace.
I don't know what was wrong with me, but teachers would reach out, troubled kid. Is he autistic? Or I don't know. I could never speak. I went through huge parts of my life not even speaking. I spoke in whispers. It's weird. Everyone did in the house, mostly. Skateboarding, what it represented, the ability to create, to express myself, it became my voice.
You can see right here, if you can. We've got 12 riders. They're going to go head-to-head. They matched up and how they qualified yesterday with the first place qualifier going with the 12th place qualifier. Tony Hawk, local boy, local favorite here. In fact, he's won last competition here. Well, actually the last 3, who's counting, right? Here we go, Tony Hawk, when you hear your music. Big hand for Tony Hawk, Stacy Peralta.
No matter how good you were.
It sounds terrible to say, and I don't want to say it this way, but our group of dudes pioneered
some time, but nobody has held a team as long as Stacy has. I mean, nobody even half the time. He was the glue that held us all together.
Aha, and here he is, folks. Come on in and say hi. Good to have you on the show.
Thank you.
May I ask your age?
20?
20. Well, you're very young to be a world champion, aren't you?
I'm not sure.
I had read about him and looked at his photos. They had been on my wall. And I had seen Stacy in a movie.
He was the first guy to say, you know what, this can be a profession. I can take this to the world and show people skateboarding.
I'm trying to put so much energy in it because I get so stoked. I get so anxious. It's like, this is it. It's like, you feed off of it.
I saw Stacy as one of the most famous skaters of the 70s. And then when he came to me and said, I want to develop an amazing team, I went, wow, you want to make a team?
He had already started a very small company called Pal Skateboards, but his company wasn't really on the skateboarding radar yet.
I'm a product designer, and that's where my focus was, is building a company that would provide great equipment for skateboarding.
When George and I first started talking, I just liked him. I trusted him. He wasn't doing this to make $1 million and retire, and I wasn't either. It was my dream as a kid to get on the Zephyr team. It was the best thing that could happen to a kid in the surrounding communities. I got on the team.
The Zephyr team was very aggressive, very surf-oriented. It was a group of guys compiled that made a huge impact on skateboarding. And Stacy was one of the guys.
Right the moment that team tasted success, it blew apart.
Kids looking into it from the magazines, it was over by the time the magazines showed it.
And it was a crushing blow and defeat. And so when I was a pro skater, I dreamed of having my own skateboard team. I wanted to create that magic. And I wanted it to last, though. I did not want it to end. I wanted to make something that would last.
Anyone else that was trying to put together a team was just trying to steal riders that were already established.
Usually it was a fat man with some brand new product, went to the skate park, was like, I got this brand new product, I'll give you $100 to ride for it, you know, and took someone else that rode for someone else.
I didn't want any skaters anyone even knew on my team. I wanted this to be no-name guys that no one had ever seen. And so I started picking up young amateurs that I knew I could develop.
Not only were they unknown, they were all picked as a very young crew. I mean, some of them were, you know, getting out of grade school sort of thing.
Here I am, like 10 years old, and I'm like this big, and these guys are like 2 feet higher than me.
I was probably about 14 years old. Then Stacy called me and said, would you like to join the Bones Brigade? I was like, of course, you know.
I remember at that competition that he first saw me skate, I ended up getting 5th place in the competition, and I was thinking, well, why does he want me? I got 5th.
Ultimately, what I was looking for is I was looking for a kid who had fire in him. Like, the reason I put Tony Hawk on the team is I saw him walk out of a pool one day, dragging his board behind him, and he had such an incredible look of disappointment on his face. Disappointment at himself. And I want that kid.
Probably one of the biggest turning points of my skating was one of the first times I ever figured out how to get to the top of the pool. I was on this gigantic skateboard, and I hung up and fell, got knocked out, knocked my front teeth out. I think I was 11 or 12. It was heavy. I mean, like I went ambulance. I didn't remember anything. And I knew right away that I was not going to quit doing this. I'm obsessed with this. I love it so much that at risk of my own health, I'm going to keep doing this. Somewhere around between the ages of, I'd say, 11 and 15, I had so many hospital visits. I had a doctor pull me aside to find out if my parents were beating me. To me that I had to be this much better than I was at the time because my coach was considered one of the best of his day, and he only picks the best talent.
I was a complete moron, I thought, to everybody else around. Kids thought we were the Addams Family. They thought we were like the weird family up on top of the hill. I was in a bagpipe band at the age of 8 to 10 or even longer. I was very isolated. I was in when the streetlights come on. Couldn't watch TV. We watched news and Lawrence Welk. Those are the two shows we could watch when we were kids. Everything else was the Devils. It was miserable until skateboarding came around. I got the hots for you. I wasn't very progressive oriented, and when I got on the team, I knew the rest of the guys were like, Stacy, are you seriously telling us that you're bringing this dude on? Johnny Joke gets last every contest, ruins the contest. You're bringing that onto our thing? You know, Tony's a prodigy. Caballero's a prodigy. Rodney's a prodigy.
This is where it started with me. I was 12 or 13 at the time.
13 years old.
Yeah. And at that time, I'd already won a lot of amateur contests. Big fish, small pond. Tiny pond. Midsummer, my dad was annoyed. You know, he never wanted me to skate. And he goes, hey, you'll grow up to be a bum and look at the culture. And he goes, look, you've had every benefit and you inherited good genes, you're smart, so don't waste it. It's like, all right, into the summer, you're growing up. Skating has to end as soon as school starts. And sit, grow up. Yes, sir. So I was skating every day, 5 hours a day. You're just making the most of it.
there was a skater that I was sponsoring at the time from Florida named Tim Scroggs, and he called me and said, you must see this 13-year-old kid in Florida named Rodney Mullen. And he encouraged me to bring Rodney out to this contest.
We went to the contest, and I remember seeing all these guys that I looked up to. Back, and I had this trophy going, I don't think I deserve this, but I did what I did. I did what I meant to do. And in my heart, there was closure. And I was saying goodbye and flew away. And I didn't skate anymore.
You stopped?
Yeah. And what he says goes. And I got a call. Skate News, some little, wasn't even a magazine, called from California. And I remember, Rodney, come inside. Long distance from California. They want to interview you. Just, wow. And that's where I said it. He goes, hey, I guess you shouldn't stop now.
I'd work with them. I'd help them design their runs.
Everything was about competition then. That's it. I felt like I had to get into a competition mode. I had to get the tricks I knew that I could make every time, so it was more of a conservative style of skating for me. And then once the contest was over, I was at the park the next day learning like 3 new tricks.
I wasn't on that same level at all. That's what it felt like to me. I don't like mastering tricks. I don't like practicing them and having them down. As soon as I have them down, they feel wrong. They feel old. They feel worthless. And there's too much effort put in to win.
You know, it was tough at times. I mean, I remember, you know, competing in Texas, throwing up behind the ramp, coming back up, oh, I'm good. A couple of kids, you know, saw what was going on.
Why were you throwing up?
I knew if I didn't do well in those contests that I was gonna drift away in that jungle of Florida that I grew up in trying to skate. You know, and it just wasn't happening. I was gonna follow my dream.
I have 36 trophies, or had. I have 0 trophies because I threw them away or gave them away because I hate them.
It was like a drug. I want to keep winning. So how can I keep winning? I love that it gave me this thrill to be successful.
Whenever I entered a contest, I always went in thinking I'm going to win. Always. You have to. Otherwise, what's the fucking point?
I think it was just always I had this thing where I wanted to seek the approval of the best of the industry. And the guys that were the best of the best, they got their picture in the magazine.
These guys were amateurs, but people were looking at them going, they're as good as the pros.
There were some just incredible skateboarders. The talent was undeniable. And that's why I shot them. It didn't matter whether they were amateurs or not. I'm not going to shoot a picture of some fucking idiot who can't even ride just because he's getting a lot of money.
We dominated the magazines not on anything but our sheer talent.
These little guys on my team, these no-names, were making a gigantic splash in skateboarding because no one had ever seen them before. And no one had ever seen the moves that they were doing. I mean, Alan Gelfand invented the ollie when he was an amateur. He invents the trick of the century when he was an amateur.
People didn't understand the ollie. They thought it was trick photography.
When you hear about this new hot kid that had this interesting trick that no one even heard of before, you know, you're going to be skeptical. And then you see this guy, Alan Gelfand, this little Jewish kid from Hollywood, Florida.
I mean, when we saw the ollie, it was insane. So I was like, yo, look at that kid. He's flying in the air without even touching his board.
Once I saw it, that was it. I had to learn it. And then where did we go from there?
I had reached a point in my career where I had learned every single trick that was ever invented. And then you start thinking, like, what else can you do?
Caballero, at 16 years of age, invents the Caballerial. He takes what Alan Gelfand's done, the ollie, and now he does it in the air 360 ollie.
When he did the Caballerial, I'm still today like blown away because I still can't do it.
For me, Caballerials were a game changer because it made you realize you can do difficult spinning maneuvers or technical maneuvers without grabbing your board.
Tony, you know, to see him develop was really something.
He had all these little progressive little flip tricks and spins, and you could tell he was like a different type of skateboarder, more like technical.
He got made fun of a lot by other people just because of the tricks he did.
He was doing things that at the time people didn't understand, and so they labeled what he did as circus tricks.
Yeah, I didn't like him, you know? I didn't like his style. He was just an annoying little fucking kid with way too many
He's a writer, a photographer, and he's a conceptual artist. But the unusual thing about Craig is Craig was a political pyrotechnician.
I would love to be able to tell you I'm wearing women's underwear, and I don't know why I'm wearing women's underwear, but I'm not. But I'd like to tell you I was wearing women's underwear and
Stesic and I are spitballing ideas one day. I'm telling him, I'm sitting here telling him, I go, I don't want to call this a team, and I don't want the word skateboarding in the name of it. Craig looks
They have nothing. Not only do they not have anything to do with skating, they were like, you're just, I mean, it's WTF. You're just looking at it half the time like, what the fuck is this sort of thing? I mean, when I talked to Tony and Cav and stuff, they would be like, can't we just have a skating shot in our ad and stuff? Like, they did not get it.
That was one of my advantages. We'd show up for an advertising shoot in Craig's place, and they're like, Cav, could you hold this dead dog for an ad? And he was like, I want to do it. I'll do it. And I got I was Mikey that got all the cool stuff that they thought was lame.
Boarding started to dive.
It was just so sudden.
Not only the fact that monetarily the bottom fell out, but the popularity on the mainstream level was all of a sudden yanked out from underneath us.
The parks were closing, the shops were closing. And by 1982, Skateboarder magazine, which was the Bible of our industry, it went out of business.
And instantly when skateboarding fell apart, all the dudes that we loved and thought were amazing were gone.
All of the pros in the 70s couldn't make money anymore, and so they were deserting the sport.
You're world champion one day, and then you're like, well, now what are you gonna do with your life?
I went back to school because I didn't know what I was gonna do for a living.
A lot of cats were like, couldn't deal with it, I don't think, and kind of went off, did drugs, sold drugs.
I was scrambling. I was living in a car. I had to do a jewel heist to have a place to live at one point. And I was, you know, on this side of the tracks, I'm supposedly some great skateboarder, and over here, I don't know where the fuck I'm gonna get my next meal.
Everyone was getting hit by it, so it was just like, all right, it's obvious that skateboarding is dead. But the question is more like, why did it collapse?
99% of the skate parks that were designed improperly because nobody knew how to make them yet.
The physics was wrong. The curves were wrong. The distances were wrong.
Was there ever a skate park design that was as good as an average sewer or a curb? No.
These parks didn't work, and they closed across the board, and skateboarders got turned off to skateboarding because of it.
We call those the dark ages because skateboarding virtually disappeared.
I was so young that all I knew was that my friends had quit skating, all skate parks were closing, but I wasn't gonna quit. I still had a skateboard. That's all I needed.
With the loss of the skate parks and the terrain that kind of dictated where and what you had to do in a way, with those gone, it took skateboarding to another era.
I pleaded with my dad's boss, who owned the sod company, can I just build a ramp here, you know? He finally said, yeah, go ahead, Mike.
People started building half pipes out of necessity, but very few ever lasted, you know? And so that every once in a while, another one would pop up, and you'd have to hit it while they could because the neighbors are definitely gonna complain and tear it down.
And that was a great thing. We'd seek everything out. You know, we'd drive 3 hours to go skate some shitty ramp in some kid's backyard.
The ramps in the backyard facilities really became, in a certain way, like missions. And they were situated around the country, around the state. And guys would come together like a religion. They were at the service of the vert.
As all this was going on, Craig and I would brainstorm with Fausto Vitello. Fausto Vitello owned independent trucks, and we decided, let's have contests. Let's have professional contests where kids skateboard.
I felt like, where the fuck are we going? I think I couldn't tell you to this day where the hell we drove to get to this contest. And then all of a sudden there's like a ramp in the middle of this like, you know, dust bowl of a parking lot.
We held these contests all over the country. This kid, Rich Flower Day in Nebraska, his parents said, sure, bring the California kids to us, have an event. I'm not sure they were expecting what they got.
All these guys were here from out of town, and they were cool, and like it was just like going to a big punk rock show.
No authority, complete chaos of 15, 16, 17-year-olds doing whatever they want, however they want.
And we'd be drinking beers and just hanging out, and everybody's on the decks and sitting on the roof.
I mean, I remember like, looking for anyone in charge. Am I first? Is he going first? What's going on? And there'd just be like one guy with a sheet of paper. Kevin Thatcher is like, yeah, we're gonna do something pretty soon.
The environment of skateboard contests prior to that was so controlled, everything was timed, but then it went into these backyards where we were like, we own this, we are this, and no one can tell us what to do here.
People were skating just for skating's sake. There was no future for a professional skateboarder.
All of our companies were making so little money. Tony Hawk got a royalty check for one of his boards for 85 cents from us.
The first prize money for a pro contest was $150, but I was 14 years old, $150, sign me up. I'm cashing in. I'm gonna buy a moped.
It was such an intoxicating place to be that these backyard ramp events started growing the sport again.
My general feeling is that skateboarding has nothing to do with competition or sport. And
If it has nothing to do with sport, then what does it have to do with?
It has to do with trying to stay as immature as you can for the rest of your life. Pretty much. I mean, that's kind of a lame thing to say, but it really is. That's what I think.
You don't mean irresponsible.
No, not irresponsible. I probably was more responsible than any of them. I had a lot more responsibilities than them, which is probably another reason why I went into being a mental case.
Lance was that classic comedian guy. He's the classic comedian that has that very dark side. There was a contest in Alabama where Lance, in the middle of this run, he just got so worked up, he took his board, he threw it at the crowd. And he didn't do it to hit somebody. I don't know what he did it for, but it ended up like tagging somebody. And this guy at the end of the contest walked right up to him and just knocked Lance over.
Yeah, but I didn't think it was that big of an outbreak. That was a small outbreak. That was a very small outbreak. There's a lot more that I had outbreaks. I remember being so pissed at Del Mar that I just jumped into the pool. I was so mad, and I was a baby. I'm a vindictive person. I'm a selfish person. I'm a total goofball. Almost all my motivation is from fear. And those are my good things. I mean, those are the bad traits in me, but those are the driving places because I'm like, I am gonna have fun and I'm gonna do what I want, even if I have to be miserable doing it. I dislike it in myself, but I don't know any other way. And that stems from being the kid that was not good at anything. No one came along and said, hey, I believe in you. I think you're the guy. I think you're good. Stacy had his group of dudes, and I saw how he interacted with them. It seemed like he expected those things out of those guys, and actually, I felt like he never expected that out of me.
I originally put Lance on the team with the idea that he would be my assistant someday. It's kind of an assistant team manager. He was a good skater, but I didn't expect him to become a great skater.
I think the idea of grooming me to do what he did came up really quickly. My mom asked Stacy, how could Lance still be involved in skateboarding? He wants to do what you did. So yeah, it was on the radar for sure. I always knew that. I think at the same time too, I was under a bunch of pressures because I was trying to raise a family and make a living.
All of a sudden, he's a father, he's a husband, and he's got to provide for them and make a place for them to live, and he's still a kid.
I worked jobs. I worked a union job. I silk screened boards. I did all this stuff while I was to be pro. And I was jealous. These dudes were skateboarding. They're skateboarders. They're #1 dudes. And I was working jobs so I could be a skateboarder. And I was thought of as second-rate skateboarder and a clown and a blah, blah, blah. And so it was that struggle of how do I join this world of winning and being the best and being progressive. And when you guys gave me the opportunity to be in that first video, it clicked.
We dreamt up the idea of let's make a skateboarding video, you know, an hour-long homemade movie of the Bones Brigade. And so I went to Craig and I said, do you want to do this?
I could make movies all day long for virtually no money. That just seemed like a logical thing to do.
Come along the top and he's gonna jump from here down. Okay. Okay, I'm rolling. Okay, get out of the way, Stacy! I can't. I have to be here to get this board. Okay.
People were just getting the first video cassette recorders in their homes.
Up till then, the only voice of skateboarding were the magazines. You didn't see stuff in action.
Where we made the first video thinking, you know, we'll probably sell 300. We sold, I think, 30,000. It was unbelievable. They became manifestos.
If it would have just been Rodney Mullen and Steve Caballero and Tony Hawk in the video, I might have went, damn, skating is tough. It's hard. Like, I'll never be that good. But Lance Mountain presented skating as something accessible.
That looked fun the way he was doing it, and I could see myself doing the kinds of things he was doing.
Like Lance let you say, it's okay to be a crappy skater. And I don't mean Lance was a crappy skater, but you can love skating and that's enough.
But it was kind of like, you know, wait a minute, you live by Stacy, I live 3,000 miles away. Why do you get to go over to his house? And, you know, he's the star of Bones Brigade. You know, it was kind of tough for me to see that.
Most of the skaters were like, man, you're getting twice as much coverage as me. And I was thinking like, but it's not coverage based on him being good. It's like, it was dorking around. It was goofing around. That's kind of what I thought. So there's that weird dynamic. But because of that, that changed everything for me. And all of a sudden I was gonna have a board.
That's when Lance became the star, by saying, I'll do this.
I did understand that I had a different thing to offer. You know, skateboarding is still just playing around and can't be all just being good.
My mom, she was a concert pianist when she was a little kid, and I grew up around music, classical music. So I grew up hearing it and reading about these guys, these great composers. And Beethoven's music always struck me. Always. He had this fire, you know? I remember reading the story of him going deaf and pushing himself into self-isolation, and that's where he became himself. And to me, that was, wow. Don't let anything poison your individuality. Be away, break away, and look in, not outward. What makes us all do what we do at a high level is an inspiration that comes so deep as almost like a controlled desperation. And if you can't tap into that, then it just extinguishes. And you can't do it through here. It's to see way down in there.
to his dad's benefit, he built Rodney this little space if he'd promised to wear his pads. So he built him a little concrete pad and little shed roof over it and lights. So Rodney would go out and he'd skate from 2 to 5 in the morning. That was his time to skate. And he'd go, it was cool because it was super hot. It was so hot and so humid in Florida where they lived that they actually built their dogs an air-conditioned doghouse.
My biggest blessing was being in isolation. That was my blessing. Maybe if I were somewhere else out here, I would have been like them.
At that time, you either skated freestyle, which instantly made you like a nerd, or you skated pools. That was it. There was no middle ground.
Freestyle was, small boards, tight shorts, total goofy attire.
We all hated freestyle. But here came Rodney and we'd all stop. Everyone would stop. The whole skate park would stop. All the vert skaters would stop.
Everybody would go watch Rodney. Didn't matter, because you knew you were in for a show.
He was so far advanced than all of us.
Every time we would meet up in California, he would always have new tricks on a level that nobody could match. I used to film a lot of those contests and go home and analyze them. We'd try to slow it down. And how did he do that, And so then everyone started trying some of Rodney's tricks.
I would watch him and go, I got to figure out how to flip my board like that. If something's been done, it's so much easier to learn than if it's never been done before. If someone else has made it, then you just, in your head, it's possible, you can do it.
Belief is at the heart of everything. All they have to do is have an acknowledgement, a switch that goes off to see it. It's, oh, wow, oh, yeah, I can do that too.
It's all convincing yourself. Every trick that I'd never done before was a matter of telling myself, you are capable of doing this, this is possible, go do it.
Tony and Rodney were both outsiders from the beginning. And for a long time, what they were doing was considered odd. They would do it, you would bring your friends to hey, come to the park, see what Tony's doing. Hey, we're gonna come out behind the building, I'll show you what Rodney's doing. And they would go look at that and they go, oh, it's like a freak show.
Don't get me wrong, I learned a lot of basic tricks that I pick up from everywhere else, but I try to absorb them so that I can build something else out of them. Because the joy isn't creating something. The joy is what comes out of you. That's what keeps me going.
Rodney Mullen inventing the flatland ollie would change everything.
I'd have to give props to Rodney Mullen adapting it to the street in such an art form where you can't skate without it.
And it was interesting because even though he did that trick, very few people did it for a long time.
When that happened, we didn't think, oh yeah, that's going to be a trick that's going to set the precedent of skateboarding for generations to come.
I mean, it really started changing the landscape of skateboarding, going away from being all based on vert, really, to really taking it into the streets and putting it in the hands of every
Over obstacles, you don't need a ramp.
Tommy Guerrero was the first street skater I put on the team.
To be a pro street skater was, just completely new. 1985.
It was the moment where skateboarding became skateboarding. It was no longer something that was derivative of surfing. It was put on the table. This is skateboarding.
The place to skateboard is in a skateboard park and not the streets.
Right.
It's in a safe place.
filming this?
Yeah. We lived in a dead-end town with nowhere to go. And then when skateboarding came along, especially street skating, it made our town bearable. It made our town livable because it blew it wide open, you know? It's like the possibilities were suddenly endless in a town that once felt like we had nowhere to go. Suddenly it was like, this place ain't so bad, because there's a curb, and there's a bench, and there's some stairs, and there's a wall. It's like everything was redefined. These weren't things that confined and defined our lives. They were things we were now defining.
I felt completely smothered by conservative society in South Carolina, but skateboarding was a way out of what I just considered this very, very homogenous way of doing things. And when Future Primitive said, you guys are over here, we're over here, I was like, yeah, that's right, I know which team I'm.
Throughout all these different videos, there's always, I forget, 12, 13 guys or whatever at some given point. We were always given a 6 or whatever. We're always given kind of like top billing. And at the same time, those other guys that weren't given top billing, they're trying to take our position.
I've got all sorts of amateurs up behind them, and those guys want to take the top slot.
You know, just because you're on the Bones Brigade doesn't mean, I mean, we had, how many members did we have of the actual Bones Brigade? What, 30, 50? Those 5 or 6 guys that were the elite guys, I mean, every one of those guys had to step up and put themselves.
And I remember thinking, that right there, that's neck breaking.
thought about, doing a 540 for, almost about 6 or 7 months when I seen, a roller skater do it.
A lot of us were trying 540s, and I was trying them with them at the bottom of the ramp, halfway up. Gator and Dale Smith and a lot of people were trying to do them halfway up the ramp.
You couldn't do it below the ramp. You had to commit yourself in a very dangerous position.
It took a lot of courage because I didn't necessarily do that kind of thing. I mean, of course, I skated as hard as I could, but I didn't take that kind of a risk. But I want to do this. And I just thought, you know what? I'm going to do it.
I would go back and forth and watch him, and he would just push and push and push. And I was thinking, oh my God, he's going to do this.
He came back. He came back to me. Guess what I made? I was like, oh, you made one. Brad. Brad. Sliding around on you, dragging everything on the ground. I'm sure it was just terrible thinking in my head. It was, come see, come see. Come see. Drops in, does a 6-foot air, does a 540 over my head. And I'm like, what the heck just happened?
Thinking, oh my God, this is going to be an infrastructural change in what they do. It will be a dividing line. And immediately, my first rotten thing to say, but it's ever so honest, is a selfish one of, I'm so glad I don't do what he does.
I'll be honest, like when he did that, I was like, I'm a jerk. Like that guy is the most respect to that dude. And I've been, digging at him and everything, but I was like, nah, it's like, I'm not on that level. I'm not even close to that type of person.
I made it right in front of Lance, and he started skating and immediately tried this trick. And I just couldn't believe that he went after it that hard and tried it. And poor Lance just spun out, and his body just cracked the top of the coping, and that was it for Lance.
I remember crying that night. I remember crying thinking like, great, got to go back to the union job, sucks, like, can't make ends meet, like, I'm going to get pushed out of skateboarding, it's horrible, like, it's lame. So, like, I remember thinking that. And I went home and I tried that thing for a month straight. And I remember landing it and walking over to the brick wall and smashing my board into pieces. Just smashing it. Like, I wasn't even happy that I made it. I was pissed that it took me a month. I was pissed that it had to be that much of a battle to do. I wasn't even like, woohoo!
There were still only a handful of people that would even try it. I started just trying to fling myself like that out of the pool, and I was like, this is crazy. Like, I don't understand how this works at all. I couldn't spin fast enough, and I was scared to death to be that high, spinning blindly.
That definitely put a wrench in my winning career when that move came out. I remember when those guys learned it, actually, I had to try to figure out other tricks to learn to try to compete. And that's what I love about being a part of the Bones Brigade, was just this group collective of skaters that pushed each other to higher levels.
We all rooted for each other. If one of us did well, then everyone else was stoked on it. I remember there was one contest where we all wore each other's shirts.
screaming for this guy. Rodney Mullen.
Rodney was absolute perfectionist, the fiercest competitor ever. I mean, he knew every single minute thing he was going to do, exactly what his feet were going to do, the order it was going to happen.
If Rodney stepped off his board or anything like that, he'd probably be devastated.
Rodney was a competitor on an Olympic scale that I've never witnessed in my life. He was flawless, perfect, every time.
Getting to second to him was like getting first. Nobody deserved to ever take his spot.
And that's when the rumors flew that he was practicing 9 hours a day. And we're going, 9 hours a day, how's that possible?
When we would go on tour, he would just go out 2 in the morning. We'd, arrive at the hotel. I'm going skating. Okay, dude. We'd wake up whenever to get to the demo and
he'd be creeping in. And I'm like, so did you find a place to skate? And he's all, yeah. And I learned a couple tricks too.
made some 500 new tricks up, like the next demo, you're like, you just did all these tricks I've never seen you do before. I've been on this road with you for a month.
Seems like you're unbeatable. Can you tell us, what's it take to be a championship freestyle?
I don't know. Just my mind.
Rodney was a really bright, sensitive person, but he was really cowed. I mean, he was almost like a beaten dog, and his nickname was Mutt.
He was pretty quiet to himself, introvert.
Rodney was fucking crazy, completely. But in the genius way, like the mad genius way, the way, those uber smart people are crazy. You could tell, some historical facts, but he literally couldn't, how do you open this door?
He stayed in the corner and did his own thing, and every once in a while he would have this outburst of we couldn't figure out what was going wrong with him.
And I remember traveling with him, one of the many, many tours in the middle of literally nowhere, trying to get to a demo, as always, late probably,
I was like, I think I'm sick. I think I'm gonna throw up. What do you, Rod? What do you motion sick? Would you eat something bad? All the above. I'm gonna throw up.
So he's doubled over and and we think he's like holding his stomach or he's feeling sick, he's gonna get out, and he, gets out and we think he's gonna puke or something. He takes off. He fucking takes off down the road, gone, out of sight.
Did he have to go to the bathroom, or where did Rodney go?
We just waited and waited and waited. I don't know how long it was. It was quite some time.
I think the sun had gone down. I don't know. But I remember seeing the van. Those dudes were all looking at me like fairly unforgettable look.
And then Rodney comes walking up. Hey, guys. That Rodney way. Hey, guys. And you're like, hey, Rodney, feel better? Yeah. Okay, we gotta go.
Shut the door, and we go. No one said a word.
Rodney, to me, was this guy that I couldn't relate to. Tony could relate to him because he's very progressive.
My best memories were flying in, going to Tony's, hanging out, seeing what he did. This freakish alien, that's what it was. X-Men, look at his crazy freaking, we're all mutants, and look at his superpowers, and I would look at him in amazement.
big. He was not the rock star guy, like with the Alva Posse and stuff. These guys were animals. They were just like dreadlocks, leather jacket, beer in their hand. You know, they just probably smoked a joint in the parking lot. You know, my guys were the rock star guys. And that's why my guys were so like, just, man, aggro over Tony Hawk. They were cursing under their breath when they saw him take.
Tony Hawk did not have a beautiful surf style. He was gangly. He didn't look pretty. He looked fantastic, but he didn't look pretty. He's not a pretty skater. He's not a beautiful stylist. And so one of his main rivals was Christian Hosoi. And Christian Hosoi, he was as beautiful a skater as there has been in the history of the sport. And he was powerful, and he was exotic looking, and like Alva, he was a rock star. And everyone, the punks, the hardcore, loved Christian. And if they're gonna love Christian, they're gonna hate Tony.
Put your hands together for Christian Hosoi!
I mean, the fans were crazy. That rivalry that they created, it pushed us to be even more competitive.
And so they would always battle. They would have these total battles that were just epic, just insane. Polar opposite styles and approaches to skating, but nonetheless, both just as good.
I mean, Christian was more amplitude, style, grace, and power. Tony was like, pump up the volume and throw some, you know, like robotic, like technicality into it.
And they said, you don't have style, you just have tricks. That's all I wanted. I just wanted new tricks.
You know, I would have to go higher at the next event because he'd make up 3 new tricks.
This is it, do or die for both skaters.
How many times, guys, it comes down to these two, Christian and Tony?
Big twist! Yeah! 80 hard, that's your best for Tony. Christian going for the jugular right here. Yeah! 720!
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce the winner,
Tony Hawk!
I was winning most of the events. I was winning all the overall series titles. And it got to a point where people were telling me, like the people I was skating against were telling me, oh, I just hope I get second place. And I just didn't like what it was doing to me. I didn't like that. It was just kind of, it was crushing mentally because I wasn't enjoying it. I wasn't enjoying, like I would win. It was like, yeah, I won. You know, that's what you expected of me. I did it. There you go. And then on the flip side of that, if I didn't win, you know, let's say I got second place, they said, oh, you suck now, you didn't win, you know, and there was just, it was too much for me at the time, and it was really draining on me, and I wasn't enjoying skating as much because of it.
I think you'd have to be a robot to not be affected by some of the negative things that were said.
The guys used to spit on Tony back in the day. I mean, the punk kids used to spit on him. They hated him.
He won everything, or close to it. That creates this so much more pressure because there's no gratification in winning. There's only upholding something so that you don't lose it. And it is staggering. It usurps the joy of it. It's like a Kafka short story. You build something, but you can't live in the house because you sit around guarding it.
I think he was 16 or 17 years old, and I got a call from Tony's brother, Steve, his older brother, and said, I need to come up and talk to you with Tony. Something's not right. And Tony is not an emotional kid, or at least he doesn't show his emotion. And this was the very first time I'd ever seen Tony emotional. This kid had completely kind of collapsed. And Steve did all the talking for him and was telling me, Tony's really disturbed and upset, and he feels he can't compete anymore. He doesn't want to compete anymore.
You know, first he told me, well, I understand that, and I can understand how you're feeling, but what can you do? Because it's all about competition. It really was at the time. It was all about your competition record. If you weren't competing, no one's gonna put you in the magazines. No one's gonna, put you in videos. You had to prove yourself that you're better than everyone else in the rankings. And then he also told me, look, Rodney Mullen said the same thing to me last year.
I remember having it at the Del Mar contest. I had to walk across the skate park to a trampoline area and sit down with him. I mean, I could feel he needed somebody. And I could sense that from him. I can't leave this kid's side today. This kid, he's got something going on. He's not telling me what it is, but he's showing me everything it is. And so I tried to be as tender and ginger as possible with him. But I'm a kid, and I'm trying to sense what this kid's going through. I don't have that many skills, but I sensed enough that it was not right.
There was a Del Mar contest, right? And I was talking to him after his run, telling him how great he did. And he said, yeah, well, that's the last contest I'm doing. I'm quitting. This is it for me. And I said, well, you got to give me your autograph before you leave. So he wrote it on a little business card, bye-bye, Rodney Mullen. And I was thinking, how in the world could this guy be the world champion, and he was winning every single contest he entered, by the way, and just walk away from it and not come back?
My dad, maybe a week, 2 weeks before the contest, before I left, he goes, so this will be your last one. It was always lingering, but he really meant it. And things had been getting bad around the home, real bad. Real bad. And so my sister had gotten anorexic, and I had started to go down a path that way, and I was just mad. And so he just said, that's it. And he goes, you're going nowhere in life, and I'm doing this to save you. Stop. I think the skateboarding is making you crazy. And so I couldn't focus. That's the only contest I
to thrive, and I didn't. You know, I started placing first a lot. Sometimes I would place fifth, and it was fun. It actually became way more fun after that.
Everything I am today somehow is probably fed by my need for acceptance. With my dad, that's not necessarily the acceptance sons are hoping for, you know? Of, hey, it's good that you did this, but do you get the point? You're dominating something that really doesn't matter, and apply yourself to something meaningful. But because of Tony and Caballero and these guys, that gave me a sense of acceptance and belonging. It was like reciprocated and bounced back and churned in a synergistic way. And that's what created the Bones Brigade.
From my perspective, I was like, I don't know, like 13, 14, 15 when, you know, the first Bones Brigade video came out and Future Primitive and Animal Chin, and we loved them. Like, me and my friends would, like, you know, we'd quote the videos. I don't know, they became part of our language, especially Animal Chin.
We had heard about it, you saw the ads, it's coming. Everybody knew it was coming. Every skater I knew that this video was coming. And there was like a buzz. There was pictures, remember there was pictures, there was the ramp, and like, what the fuck is this? This is gonna be crazy, and it was.
In the last 30 years since that time, I've bumped into more kids of the generation after me that even after they saw the Dogtown film were just like, what about Animal Chin? And I said, are you fucking kidding me? Animal Chin? And they're like, are you kidding me? That's like the greatest video. I said, I mean, that's damn near homoerotic.
Okay, fellas, that's room number 7.
What are you guys doing?
I can't go any other way. I mean, Animal Chin was just like, it was an embarrassment to me as a skateboarder. I just remember my initial instinct that it was like, why is this, you know, Stacy telling this story of these guys so fucking corny? Why is he making skateboarders look like, you know, even softer than they could ever possibly be?
Method, air, and 1 foot, air, and judo, air, and comb your hair, and rocket airs, guys. Breathe out.
Once more, that was hysterical. I love the comb the hair. Do the same one. That is hysterical. Everybody say it, too.
Stale.
I'm embarrassed by my filmmaking qualities? Terribly. It's awful. And it's actually everything I hate in films. It's so B-movie and cliched and corny.
Check it out. It's like a skate god must have skated on this thing or something. Check it out. Some kind of Chinese symbol or something.
Oh. God, when people tell me they like it, I just look at them and go, I'm embarrassed by it.
You know, I think that it was the presentation of the video, first off. You know, I like the way, you know, it wasn't just a straight skateboard video. It told this kind of story.
Good evening. Tonight's top story, legendary skater Wonton Animal Chin has been reported missing by friends and relatives.
We're really looking for this Chin guy. Have you seen him?
Buck Chin, the realtor? Nancy Chin, the manicurist?
For some reason, I'm dressed up like a 130-year-old elderly Asian gentleman. It's unfortunate when you have a male my age who's never actually had a job, but I'm thinking about changing this, and I hope to. So if you're watching this, give me a paper route or something, I'll start over.
When you talk about a message with skating, it has to be cheesy. Because if you don't, then it gets sentimental, or then you start getting pompous. You want it to be this weird, like Lance falling, that stupid thing where he falls off board slamp and his head is in the ground. It's so bad and cheesy.
Lance, you okay? Yep. Oh, yeah. It wasn't even a bad slam. Don't worry.
The whole video to me represented skating because they were trying to talk about this message and you had horrible acting,
Hey, you guys. You think Chin was really here?
horrible songs. awesome skating.
It's Chin. Steve, check it out. It's Chin. No way. It's useless. Was that okay?
Yeah, try it again though.
Not that we didn't sign up for it, but we never expected to be actors because we skate.
Okay, look this way. Now react to someone over there.
Yes.
We want stoked reactions. Really stoked.
Oh, yeah. Big one, Mike. Oh, yeah.
Come on, Mike. Come on, Mike. Water bullet. Water bullet. Air bullet. Go, go, go. Come on, to there. Ah! Go! Yeah!
You know, you had a lot of characters on the team and a lot of personalities. So when you got 5 dudes together like that and you put them in a room for hours on end or made them do shit that, you know, do it again, do it again, do it again. It's just, you know, it's either gonna come out as anger or laughter. And most of the time it came out as laughter, you know? It's like, oh, you gotta make fun of this situation.
I don't care what I say. Do what I say. Huh? Is that funny? Is that funny?
Once again, it's time to buy more soul. The flavor you will savor in your soul. Wax is distributed within soul. As Russia sends you in an extra pin soul. Here makes his pocket on the console.
Of course, to see them as a group was cool, but also to know that they were individual personalities with their own idiosyncrasies.
There were many teams that just, you didn't know their personalities, that the companies didn't give them a chance to shine like that.
You started, picking your favorite, Bones Brigade guys.
So I'd get to be Cab, somebody else get to be Tony. Somebody else would be Lance, Lance is my guy, and we'd pretend we were them.
Levels we set will never go down. Competition commenced to step down.
You started to realize the effect that you had on people. You go somewhere and some guy's wearing suspenders, like Stevie, The haircuts, Tony Hawk, that haircut, the squeeb. How many kids had that? Everyone.
It's that time between childhood and adulthood where you're trying to find yourself and you need to find a voice. And that's how we identified ourselves.
Animal Chin raised our profile beyond anything we could ever have known. But at the same time, I would come back and just be smacked into reality again. You're in high school, you're going to history. And I was still like kind of the nerdy kid. It was this weird paradox that I lived in. And then once I graduated high school, I literally was out of high school and straight onto Gleaming the Cube set.
There's a time that we were going from all these Hollywood things, one from another.
I'm not even sure how any of that happened. It was just so bizarre.
And I remember Stacy telling us, hey, you guys, you people are gonna be running up to you and asking for your autograph. And we're like,
You guys really used to make fun of us for doing this.
In the early 80s, it was not looked at as a career or a job. And when the money started rolling in, people thought differently.
Each of these skaters was paid by the amount of boards we're selling each month.
We were paid per board, and it was basically $1 a board.
I remember my first check was 1980. I remember getting $300.
I went from making 85 cents to making 20 grand a month.
The business was growing extremely fast. We went, in the early 80s, we went from, I think, 8 employees to by the mid to late 80s, we had 150 employees.
The company had grown from a tiny local shop
to a manufacturer known to the ends of the skateboard world.
25 years ago, it started out as one more of those California fads. Now, it's the sleeper gift of Christmas '87. Santa Barbara-based Powell Peralta is producing 2,000 boards a day to meet the Christmas demand and could sell twice that number.
Sport's really taken off in the last 6 months, much faster than anybody expected. As a result, our demand is much more than our ability to produce.
These kids were making more than Stacy and me. Yeah. It didn't bother me to pay the money. That was because we were successful. But it was hard to sell to the team, on my team, up at the company. I have to tell my 40-year-old professionals that this 16-year-old kid needs to make 5 times what they're making.
Here I am, like, getting out of high school, all my classmates trying to figure out where they're gonna go to college, what they're gonna study, what they're gonna be. And I was making the kind of money that was reserved for, like, top-end jobs.
That was, that was big money for us to, what were we gonna spend it on? I lived at home.
I was making money, and I had a checking account. Didn't buy anything, didn't have a car, nothing.
It was just getting larger and larger and larger, and I just kept putting the money in the bank.
You couldn't find a nicer group of fucking Boy Scouts than the Bones Brigade.
I didn't like the way they dressed. I didn't like their haircuts.
I wanted to like throw dirt on them or get them dirty a little or something. They were too nice, and they never got angry or anything, And I thought they were like little Boy Scouts.
Hell no, we weren't Boy Scouts, but I don't know. We didn't really get into alcohol or drugs or anything like that. I mean, skateboarding was our way of, letting loose, I guess.
Traveling with them, it was like all the other pros had, they were drinking and partying with all the locals. The Bones Brigade had their little skateboards in their bed, sleeping with their boards.
The drinking, the partying, the girls, all that stuff is when you're coming to a head that you're like, this isn't fulfilling me. I can't be fulfilled by it. It's not rad enough. It's not good enough. That's why you do that stuff. So for them to say, you guys were straight and lame and we're partying and having a good time. No. You're partying and having a good time because you cannot compete with Caballero. Man up and beat us. Not me personally, they always beat me. But man up and beat my boys.
And it was really like hard to believe because here are these little soft kids, but all their integrity and all their heart was in skateboarding.
issues and fissures developing between George and I. Now that we had become successful, we weren't seeing things the same way anymore.
You know, Stacy's team was his life. It was his dream. He was their mentor. He was their brother, their dad. And I think that was really where we started to have the central issue probably between us.
I could see there were changes being made in the skateboarding industry. It was changing from a big company industry to a small, nimble company industry. And I wanted us to fund companies for the guys on our team, like Tony and Lance and Tommy and Mike. I wanted to make the Tony Hawk Company, the Lance Mountain Company, and I wanted us to manufacture and make them and put them in business and have a piece of it, but it's their business. They can do it wherever they want. And that way it would give us a connection to evolve with these guys because I knew they were going to do it anyways. They were eventually going to go off and start their own businesses. They saw me do it. Of course they're going to do it.
Things were evolving and we were evolving. And I was considering moving on and doing something else. But the one person I didn't want to disappoint was Stacy.
In my mind, I'm thinking, Stacy's trying to look out for his team, and I'm trying to look out for the company. I'm going like, that's not being partners in Stacy Peralta. What are you doing? And I think this just created a grinding. It's like needing to go one way and needing to go another.
And it created a lot of animosity between us. It was coming to an end. It wasn't going to last. What it was couldn't be.
It was the end of what we all did together. In some ways, it was very devastating because we had in our heart and our hopes and our dreams that we were going to do this forever. And it came to an end. It's pretty heavy, actually. My whole life, I saw dudes I loved come and go. Come and go. I shouldn't even have been in a position to have it, much less fade away. And you gave me that opportunity. It's rad. I mean, all you guys gave me that opportunity. I shouldn't even have been in it, is my opinion.
I just look back at my life and I feel so blessed to be a part of this whole scene. The people that we've affected, just because of the passion that we have.
I spend a lot of time in the stacks and the libraries, and you're looking at these stacks of unreadable masterpieces that men devoted their lives standing on the shoulders of geniuses before them, Bertrand Russell, Principia Mathematica, and all these things that, who will read those? How will they change society? How do they really factor into things? Me? I was able to contribute with a lot of tricks. Those tricks now have names, and those tricks factor into what everybody else does. In a very meaningful way, I have helped create a vocabulary by which this community communicates. I mean, you can hear people chat, listen to how skaters talk. These are all words and expressions, things that we create. It's our language, but it's also physical. And it helps define us as individuals, how we fit within that framework. And it helps define the community itself. And so when I look and I think of the contribution of all these geniuses and this smell and the browning paper of these dusty books that no one will read. I think that I am so rich and what I have done has meaning. So, I don't know what that answers. Where do we start?